Hey there, it is February 3rd, Wednesday 2016, and it is comic book review time. This week we're going to have 3 videos. This one is going to be the longest, probably. Still not all that long. The next 2 will be quickies, but that's how the books, I feel, make sense divided this week. So we are getting started this week with Marvel books, starting with Howard the Duck, issue number 4. We left off last issue with Howard trapped by this guy, the Stranger, who wants to use his abilities as a living nexus in order to create a new dimension that he can be a part of. And in the page right after this one, Howard gets rescued, although not by the Guardians of the Galaxy and Shock and Linda, who he transported the Guardians of the Galaxy at the end of last issue, but by this weird lady, this Bronze Border, I want to call her. She's never given a superhero alias, but this Bronze Border, I want to call her, comes and rescues Howard, or not so much rescues as takes him for herself in order to bring to Galactus, who, of course, she is a herald for now. And that is kind of where this story leads, with Howard in the custody of Galactus and this new herald of his, and then everyone just kind of comes to Galactus to rescue Howard. So, of course, when you have a Galactus story, when you have a herald story, Silver Surfer has to make an appearance, with a cheeky little nod to the Silver Surfer ongoing on right now, as Dawn is in Allslot, the planet, and the guy who writes Silver Surfer's named Dan Slott, so that makes sense. And then we have the Guardians and Linda and Shocket come and join the party, and then a lot of other people who have come in order to hunt Howard for themselves because of his living nexus-y things. So yeah, still a really funny book in my opinion. This issue we get a lot of Howard just being pissed off and utterly kind of steamed that he's just being tossed around by all these people as if, you know, like a trophy instead of a living being. So every time one of these happens, like, oh great, another person grabbing me, you know? Even when he's being quote-unquote rescued, it's out of the frying pan and into the fire. Yeah, and there's also a lot of humor in the editor's notes, because Chip Zdarsky apparently knows nothing about what is happening in the Marvel Universe. Or at least that's the joke, is that first he's sorry about putting Howard through all this trouble, because Howard seems really sad, and then he has no idea where a bunch of these other people are supposed to be in the Marvel Universe, because no one tells him anything. So that is Howard the Duck issue number 4, and it does bring us closer to the cold open of Howard the Duck issue number 3 by the end, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool that we have that. Next up is Captain Marvel issue number 2, and this book I really enjoyed because it's half Alien by not James Cameron, by Ridley Scott. It's half Ridley Scott's Alien, as the Captain and Alpha Flight investigate this mysterious old ship that appeared at the end of the last issue, and even Carol drops some not too obscure hints that she is also thinking this is a lot like Alien. And we get to see the interior of the ship, which turns out to be kind of organic, and of course isn't entirely unpopulated, although it is hundreds of years old and hundreds of years more advanced than anything the Alpha Flight team has seen. The B plot involves Commander Brand, who is dealing with the aliens that Carol ordered to be imprisoned at the end of the issue number 1, the Eridani, I guess it's pronounced. And so we have Brand, who is the acting commander, dealing with the political issues of taking some dignitaries, some foreign dignitaries, hostage because you believe them to have attacked you. And we find out that maybe it wasn't as cut and dry as the first issue might have led us to believe. And that kind of brings us to the halfway point, which I'm not going to talk past, because, you know, buy this book. It's really good, and you should find out what happens at the end for yourself. But yeah, this is very Alien-inspired. If you like the movie Alien, then this book will seem very familiar to you, and you might like it because of that. Lots of familiar, just, you know, a team of explorers discovering an ancient ship with advanced and alien life. So, cool stuff there. Again, Alien, one of my favorite movies, so I quite enjoyed this one. Moving right along to Doctor Strange, issue number 5. And this is the climax issue. This is the issue where things really go to shit. We start off with a flashback to earlier on in Strange's career, when he had just used Atlantean black magic, and we see the incredibly heavy toll it takes on his body. And we then catch up with Wong somewhere in the Himalayas, where we find out that in order to fuel the Doctor, in order to make sure that that Stephen stays alive long enough to protect the Earth, that he has secretly raised a bunch of monks in order to be essentially like voodoo dolls for Doctor Strange, so that when he does magic, they take the toll on their bodies instead of the Doctor taking it on his own. Which is morally very gray, to make others sacrifice themselves for something, even if it is for the greater good. That we don't know if they had a choice in that. It definitely sends some ripples on the how ethical is Wong. How far can we trust them? Then we have Stephen actually dealing with the invasion of the Empirical, sending out a signal to the rest of the magic universe saying the Empirical are coming. They are using technology to eat our magic, stuff that we had already known as readers for a while. And we see Stephen actually trying to fight against them, which does not go exactly as planned, as Stephen discovers that he has less and less access to magic, and so he has to pull out his final resorts. And we've seen what his final resorts do at the beginning of this issue, so how this ends isn't exactly clean and happy. So yeah, this is the part of the story where Stephen has to dig deep and access forbidden, very powerful magics to see if those can actually stop the threat, or, you know, once that's, you know, used up, well, what else can he do? We'll find out next issue, probably, because this is not the end of the arc, but it is definitely the climax. This is where the story reaches the lowest point, the point where you think, okay, you know, we're pulling out the final resorts, this is going to be good, and it is good, and it's probably only going to get better. So, once again, 5th time, I think now, I am recommending Doctor Strange. And this moves us along to Invincible Iron Man, number 6, as the cover selfly tells us, start of a new arc involving War Machine. The arc is called The War Machine, so, you know, kind of figures he'd be involved somehow. And we do start with James Rhodey as War Machine investigating Madame Mask's break-in into Stark Tower, Tokyo. I'm sorry, Stark Tower, Japan. It's in Osaka. So while Rhodey is investigating that, trying to figure out where, what Mask stole and why she wanted it and all that, we then cut to Tony, Tony Stark, who is on a date with with Amara. Amara's her name. And yeah, so this is our dual story, is we have Rhodey investigating the break-in with Madame Mask, and also eventually the ninjas that attacked Tony in issue 4. And meanwhile we have Tony on a second date, I think, a third date with Amara, and their date is interrupted by Tony Stark's new best friend, Dr. Doom. And so those are our two stories here. And my big problem with this, and it's been my problem with Iron Man, I think since the first issue, is that the layouts are still confusing. So for this page, actually, the one I'm on right now, It goes these two, this one, and then across the bottom there. And then there's a lot of the pages are like that, which is just, comics have been around long enough where even if you're doing inventive panel design, you should know how to make it where, you know which direction to read it. Like, you can have a comic book that is a puzzle, but, like, in terms of narrative, in terms of what is happening, but it shouldn't be intentionally difficult to read. To figure out, am I reading left to right, or right to left, or up to down, or down to up? That shouldn't be an issue anymore with a comic book. Unless, like, that's what the whole entire comic book is about, and the whole thing's a puzzle, but Iron Man isn't that sort of book. Iron Man should be kind of easily legible, or at least easily navigable to a comic reader. And then they changed the art, I think. We have a new artist on the series now, and everything is just too dark and shady. And I get they're going for, like, a more realistic style, but it feels like everything has, like, a shade filter on it. It's just not all too pleasant to look at, in my opinion. But I think the book is still really well written, as this series has been so far. I think the date part is really well written, especially with Amara interacting with Dr. Doom, because we're given that Amara is this incredibly smart, talented, gifted, and, like, confident woman, and she's going up against the supervillain in the Marvel Universe. She's also with Iron Man, and she's holding her own in the conversation. She's not letting Tony tell her, like, what to do. She's not letting, Tony, like, try and keep her safe or whatever. She's interacting with Dr. Doom completely on her own. She's a little starstruck. She's a little in awe. Kind of makes Tony a little jealous because, he's Tony Stark. He should be the center of attention no matter what. And so I just really like Amara's characterization in this issue. And also, James Rhodey gets some pretty cool points, too, especially near the end when he investigates further into the ninja thing instead of just talking to Friday about the Madame Mask break-ins. And so that is Iron Man, issue number 6, still pretty solid book. And the last, well, not the last Marvel book, but the last Marvel book I will be reviewing in this video is The Vision, number 4, and this book continues to just be absolute genius, in my opinion. And we start off pretty high level here. We start off with a riff on the old Charlie Brown trying to kick the football thing. Instead, it isn't Vin here that is trying to kick the ball while Viv pulls it away. Viv is holding the ball, and she's getting impatient because Viv keeps on phasing through it instead of actually kicking it. And then they discuss the actual, like, philosophical implications of this little gag that's been around for 50, 60 years now in terms of trust and belief and all that sort of thing. So that's really, really cool and just really, really smartly written. And then we return to that later on when Vision actually joins in to play catch with the kids, and they continue the conversation about the football and all that. In this issue, the kids, after a few issues, go back to school, and so we see them try to adjust after being out of school for a while, after Viv being in the hospital, and after Vin acting out against another classmate. We get to see them try and reintegrate, and Viv seems to do a better job of that, as she makes a new friend in CK, who is the boy that Vin actually attacked. I think in issue 2 it was, so that's an interesting little relationship we got there. And yeah, it's a sweet little scene, and it's a scene of, like, boy meets girl, but it's actually sweet. It's not at all kind of cringeworthy. It's not at all, oh, you can see where this is going. It's a nice, sweet little scene between two characters getting to know each other that I really enjoyed. Meanwhile, the most interesting part of this book is still Virginia, who is dealing with the fallout of the events of the first issue of killing the Reaper, burying him in the backyard, and then having someone find out that she has done this as she is trying to hide it from her family. So in this issue, Virginia, finally confronts the person who sent her the telephone, the person blackmailing her, and I'm not going to spoil who it is or why they are doing it, but things do not get better for Virginia, even after taking this head on. We still see that she is she has a bit more than a bit of a dark side to her, and she will go to pretty extreme lengths in order to, in her mind, protect her family. And she just continues to be an incredibly interesting character and really fun to watch. But the book overall, all the characters are really cool, even if they are kind of robotic, like intentionally so at moments. They all lend something. They're robotic, but they're not emotionless. We have the Vision, who's this dedicated superhero and father, and tries to be kind of a very 1950s television dad, like just playing catch with the kids and dedicated to his work and all that. He's very, I'm going to be the dad you see on television all the time. The kids are realistically childish, but also realistically robotic, and including their dialogue and arguing about the philosophy of belief and lies and all that and trust. But down to their interactions with other human teenagers, like in this scene. So just everything about this book I think works and is interesting and has multiple sides and corners to it to look around. So I'm really enjoying Vision, and I think everybody should pick it up and give it a try, because I think everyone can find something to enjoy in it. And that is it for the first part of this week's review series. Next part is going to be 3 Spider-Man books that I picked up this week. All of them slightly different. I didn't just pick up 3 copies of Amazing Spider-Man, if that's what you were wondering. Then the third part is going to be Batman and Paper Girls. So if you're interested in Batman or Paper Girls, you're going to have to wait until the third part. But I hope you do. If not, that's okay too. I want to thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like it. If you want to hear my reviews of other comic books or movies or whatever, please subscribe to this channel. Any comments, questions, anything whatsoever, I will try and get to them if you leave them down below in the comments. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, next video is going to be Spider-Man stuff, so I hope you watch that. If not, again, thanks for watching, and I do hope that you join me eventually for some more comic book reviews.